We had heard that there was a new kids show looking for a theme song. And through, I think, a contact of Dennis's, we had the opportunity to submit. I was told there were over 15 different submissions for theme songs. I didn't know that till later on, of course. So we knew that it was about reading. We knew that there was something about a butterfly, and that was about it. So the three of us sat down. Dennis and Janet were mainly the lyricists, and I was mainly the music composer. And we did a demo, produced it in my 8-track studio that I had built, and Janet sang it, and we submitted it. It was completely different sounding than the original version that you know now, because it was a demo. We did it kind of islandy, as I remember, steel drums and kind of lighthearted, kind of fun feel like that. And for some wonderful reason, they chose our song. And that's what started my relationship with Reading Rainbow.
You're listening to Music Dialogue, conversations with leading composers and music professionals in the film and television industry. Hi, I'm Nick Johnson. On today's show, I'm speaking with composer Steve Horelick, who created the theme song and score for one of the most memorable children's shows of all time, Reading Rainbow.
In the middle of that process of being a high schooler, which is like a crazy thing, right? There was a wonderful, wonderful teacher who I'd like to shout out to. His name is Robert Gillis, and he was the head of music, let's say, at Upper St. Clair High School in Pittsburgh. He was the most inspiring, tough love teacher one could ever wish to have. So he was the choir director. And when I was a junior in high school, I believe, he started a program in music composition. And at that time, I was playing in bands. There was a lot of weird stuff going on in the 70s, with drugs and everything. And everybody was struggling. And this class came along and just kind of turned me around. And I just loved the class. And at that moment, I knew that I had a certain talent. He made it tough for me to discover that. So the discovery itself was kind of an enlightenment. And I kind of owe it all to him. That's where it all started. And that's what got me going on my professional career as a musician. So thank you, Robert Gillis. I was a music student at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I didn't go far from the nest, obviously. But I got into Carnegie Mellon, one of 2 composition students that they've ever accepted as freshmen in those days. So it was quite an honor. It was either my junior or senior year. I was doing a cross residency, so to speak, at a local college, which was the University of Pittsburgh. When you were enrolled in one college in Pittsburgh, you could take classes at any other college as long as your college didn't offer that class. So the class I was taking at the University of Pittsburgh was an electronic music class. And the teacher of that class was offered the job to write music for a Shakespeare play at Pittsburgh's only equity stage called the Pittsburgh Public Theater. It was their inaugural season. And I guess he didn't want to do it for whatever reason and asked me if I'd be interested. So I said, yeah. My father always taught me to say yes and then figure out how to do it later. I had no idea how to become a composer for theater, but I guess I figured that out too. So I did a demo. They loved it. I scored all of the original songs and background music for a production of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, which featured Leonard Nimoy at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, and that was my first paying gig. Well, I had just moved to New York from Pittsburgh to actually go into the music business. They called it the music production business. My goal was really to write music for commercials. So I had built a studio from scratch. I built all the walls myself. I actually went through dumpsters in New York City to find lighting fixtures because there was really no budget for this. It was back in the day when you could do those kinds of things in New York City. And built the walls, did the wiring, had a little bit of money to buy equipment, and was kind of hawking myself as a composer and sound designer for commercials because I was heavily into, and still am into, electronic music, synthesizers and stuff. And so that's what I was doing. I was trying to become a composer of commercial, and I had some success. I did a lot of national ads, a lot of sound design for ads, and that's what I was doing the day that Reading Rainbow that opportunity kind of snuck in through the window. It's a nice story. I was collaborating at the time with a very talented young woman named Janet Weir. and another fellow named Dennis Kleinman. And we had heard that there was a new kids show looking for a theme song. And through, I think, a contact of Dennis's, we had the opportunity to submit. I was told there were like 15 different submissions for theme songs. I didn't know that till later on, of course. So we knew that it was about reading. We knew that there was something about a butterfly, and that was about it. So the three of us sat down. Dennis and Janet were mainly the lyricists, and I was mainly the music composer. And we did a demo, produced it in my 8-track studio that I had built, as I said earlier. And Janet sang it, and we submitted it. It was completely different sounding than the original version that you know now, because it was a demo. We did it kind of islandy, as I remember, steel drums and, kind of lighthearted, kind of fun feel like that. And for some wonderful reason, they chose our song. And that's what started my relationship with Reading Rainbow. It is my belief, and I've been told this, that the Reading Rainbow theme song was the first all-electronic music theme song ever, which is kind of astounding because I had a bunch of really cool synths in those days. By the time Reading Rainbow came along, my business was going along pretty good. So I had invested in what is called a Buchla electronic music instrument made by a fellow named Donald Buchla, who died about 9 months ago, unfortunately, on the West Coast. He was a true instrument maker. You don't really think about synthesizers as instruments, but back in those days, he didn't even think of what he was creating as a synthesizer. He always called it an electronic music instrument. And if you're familiar with the opening of Reading Rainbow, which that was all done on a very sophisticated sequencer called the multiple arbitrary function generator that he invented, and there was nothing like it anywhere in the world. And as a matter of fact, he only made 8 of them, I was told, and I had one, and that the creation of that sound has become such a signature sound for anyone who knows the series.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow.
That was a very high-tech piece of analog/digital hybrid synthesizers or instruments. The other instrument I used throughout the creation of the theme song was called the Fairlight Series 1, Fairlight CMI Series 1, which was the first sampler ever made. Fairlight as a company invented the concept of sampling. The sampling technology of that sampler in particular was 8-bit. I think the biggest hard drive was in the megabytes. 230 megabytes. I mean, they were tiny and expensive. I mean, back in those days, that was a huge investment. It was like a $50,000 instrument, right? For this kind of technology you could buy for, $99 on your laptop or even download for free, on your iPad. This is before the Mac. Think about that. This is before the first Mac. So, technology was hard to come by, and memory was really, really expensive. It came with a fairly extensive library. I don't know the number, but hundreds and hundreds. And of course, one thing that's cool about a sampler is you make your own sounds. Being out in the studio and recording everything in sight and making whatever it is you're recording into an instrument was a big part of the fun and sound design of all the music that you were making back then. So that was used extensively in the theme song also, along with one of the original drum machines called the Lin LM1. And there was also an Oberheim 4-voice SEM synth in there too. So yeah, it was all electronic. It has never been done before. And I think it kind of captured the feeling of what a new kid show should sound like. There were a lot of kid shows on the air in those days, and especially on PBS, and they were they were all kind of jazz based and rhythm section based, and we came along and did something a little different. Reading Rainbow was an awesome gig. I loved the fact that it wasn't commercial and that it truly was about helping kids learn to love books. And the wonderful host, LeVar Burton, did such an amazing job introducing the love of reading to just, millions of children. And they never marketed it, right? There was never like LeVar Burton dolls. They weren't selling rainbows, to paste all over your lunchbox. I mean, this was truly in the days where PBS was about goodness and education and didn't have to be a slave to commercialism. So my involvement with this show lasted a long time. They gave me free rein to compose every episode, and they expected new music for every episode, new original music for every episode, which was, it's really a composer's dream come true because every episode was so different. LeVar was always taking us on different journeys to different places and different explorations, and everything required an original score. So yeah, it was a very long relationship. I think I'm not exactly sure. I think it was about a 25 year relationship, about 160 episodes, each one with a completely original score. And of course, the technology changed from those early days when we were recording in mono and 8-bit to fairly modern stuff, because I think the last score I did for them was 10 years ago in 2008.
What does it mean to you to have been involved in such a special project that became a really big part of so many kids' lives?
It means a lot. Nothing makes me happier than to be, in a restaurant somewhere and hear someone singing the theme song, which, by the way, happens a lot. You'd be surprised how that song has embedded itself into a psyche of a generation. And whether or not I let them know I was the composer depends on the situation. But even just hearing, people sing that song is a really heartwarming experience for me. It was a great experience working with Reading Rainbow, from the people involved, the writers, the creator of the series, Twyla Liggett, the producers, Larry Lancet and Cecily Truitt, and all of the line producers, everybody, the directors. Everybody, without question, were just extraordinary people to work with. So the whole experience was just fantastic. It just occurred to me. Remember, early on I spoke about a wonderful teacher I had in high school. His name was Robert Geilis, who really inspired me from my musical life. He's an elderly man now, and I, after many, many years, made contact with him and went to a reunion for the high school for the music part of the high school, the music department of the high school I went to. And as thanks for his inspiration and his guidance and his tough love, I gave him a copy of my Emmy nomination for Reading Rainbow, actually the original certificate. And of course, I inscribed it and thanked him for everything that he did for me in my life. And I just, want to say that because there's nothing better than a great teacher. And it's important to remember those people and to give back and to let them know how great they were, if indeed they were one of those pivot points or change points in your life.
You've been very successful in an unconventional profession. How much of that would you attribute to luck and how much of it was hard work?
When I was a kid, my dad said, you make your own luck. And what he meant by that wasn't that I create my own luck. He says, you have to be ready because luck comes and luck goes. And if you're prepared, then you can match your preparation with that chance moment and turn it into something special. I have to say that Reading Rainbow came out at a time when I was brave and built my own studio in a strange city. And all of the hard work I put into being a composer, being a sound designer, being a synthesist, it all came together at the perfect time. I don't know whether it's luck or it's something different than luck, if you know what I'm saying, something maybe more divine, something more complicated than just luck. It was funny. I remember at the time, I had a lot of composer friends who grew up in New York and lived here and were trying to have a career here. And I, right out of college, I moved here from Pittsburgh and kind of landed a really good gig. And, it's interesting. They told me more than once, that's the only way it seems to happen because those of us who grew up here know that it's impossible, right? I had absolutely no fear. I didn't know it was impossible. So it just kind of happened and I was ready for it.
What does an average day look like for you today?
It depends on the day. I don't know if there's an average day. I'm the part owner and a partner, I should say, and executive vice president of an education company called Nonlinear Educating. We have the sites macprovideo.com and askvideo.com. And we teach a lot of people how to make music and how to do graphic design and shoot video. It's an education company that I was been involved with for about almost 15 years. Yeah, and what's interesting is I kind of got that gig because of Reading Rainbow. The person who was starting the company, I met at a trade show, and we were talking. I told him about Reading Rainbow, and he asked me if I'd like to do a tutorial or course on a piece of software that I was an expert in, Logic Pro X by Apple. I said, sure. What's a tutorial? I didn't even know. But it was because of the Reading Rainbow connection that he felt like, oh, this guy has the cred to do courseware and to sell a lot of courses, which of course is what happened, and went on to become a partner in the company. So my days are running, a high-tech online education company. However, and I don't mean to be so long-winded, I still do a lot of electronic music. In fact, I just finished a live electronic surround gig at a local university, Mercy College, and in May, I was performing in Berlin. So I still love electronic music. And if you could see me in my studio now, I'm surrounded by new Buchla musical instruments and lots of cool hardware and software.
What advice would you give to anyone who wants to advance a career in music?
It's not as easy, I don't think, and it never was easy. But I think it's a harder thing to do these days, and it all depends on what kind of music you want to do, right? I think that I would just say you have to do what your heart is telling you to do. Don't listen to what people think is the right way to make music or the wrong way to make music. Be true to who you are as a composer, as a singer, as a performer. Work really, really hard, because a young person has the energy to work hard. So use that energy in ways that are really, really productive. Don't get lost in things that waste your time. Stay focused, work hard, learn everything you can. Be willing to rework things. What I mean by that is that sometimes, songs will leap out of you as pure inspiration, but that's only like 10% of what the job should be. The next 90% should be like taking that and working it and making it better. And that's where the craft of music comes in. Having great inspiration is key. You got to have that. But without the craft and being able to work hard to turn something new into something tremendous is something that young people need to learn how to do. It's a world that is where there's a lot of immediacy. You don't have to work hard to get a lot out of a computer these days. But accepting that immediacy as a final product is a big mistake that I see a lot of young people doing. So I guess it all comes down to just do the hard work.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. It was so great to hear about your career and the story behind Reading Rainbow.
Thank you for having me, Nick. This was really, really a great time, and I love talking about Reading Rainbow. It was a great series, and who knows, maybe it'll even come back someday.
That was a conversation with composer Steve Horelick on creating the theme song and score for Reading Rainbow. You can find out more about Steve at stevehmusic.com. Additional music used in this episode was composed by William Ryan Fritsch. You can check him out at williamryanfritsch.com. Thanks again for listening, and if you like what you heard, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.